Another time where I felt really, really othered in a lot of ways was that when I got my first kind of corporate job, I really didn't want to be there, to be honest. It was not the type of work that I wanted to be doing in the world. It was a means to an end. It was in 2010 when I got that job, actually. And it was as we were starting to recover from the recession of 2008, the economic crisis. And I needed to pay my student loans, and I needed a job that wasn't going to, have a real huge commute. And I landed where I landed using the background that I had in biochemistry. The department that I landed in and the team that I ended up working with was a complete and utter shift for me in so many ways, because I was so used to stepping into spaces and just being welcomed, feeling like I was part of the team and things like that. Sometimes it took a little while for things to kind of sort themselves out. But in general, it was usually not this real jarring kind of weird sense of being part of something, but also not being part of something. But that team that I had at my first corporate job, it's it always starts with a mean girl, right? There was a mean girl in my group who was so rude to me, so demeaning to me. I was one of the only people who had a master's degree there in that group. And she treated me so I was just a complete idiot. I still think about it now, and she still lives in this community around here where I live. And occasionally I run into her, and I still have this kind of anxiety response to seeing her, because she just made my life so miserable back in the day. And so I remember I was getting to the point at one point where I was just this is untenable. I cannot continue to work in this type of an environment. This is miserable. I dreaded seeing her. I dreaded going to work. And I finally got up the courage to say something to her one day. And I was just hey, it seems like you really don't like me for some reason. And I don't know, did I do something wrong to make you upset? Is there something that I should be doing differently? I feel we should be able to work together in a kind of collegial way, at least. We don't have to like each other, but we can at least connect with one another in this way and at least get the work done that we need to get done. And she was just no, I don't have a problem with you. You're fine. It's okay. And was completely and utterly dismissive of me, and then continued to be a jerk to me. And that showed up in a lot of different ways. She was demeaning to me when we were in the space, and she had to, I was learning things at that point, and she had to teach me things. And I had no choice. I didn't have anybody else who could teach me some of the things I needed to learn. And then they would all go to lunch without me. It was just, they'd go off site to go grab lunch somewhere else, without me. It was just it was typical mean girl behavior. And so similarly, I felt so lonely during that time and really, really struggled in order to be able to stick it out. And I stuck it out for 4 years. I actually stayed there for as long as I possibly could before one day I was just I'm done. I quit and left to work for a brewery. And I loved the place that I worked. It was definitely preferable to this shit treatment that I had been getting for so long, and feeling I wasn't making a difference. And also feeling within a corporate space I was just a cog in a machine. Any ideas I had for change were never actually entertained or taken seriously. I realized, and this was kind of part of my, to an extent, my fill and origin story. I started to realize just how toxic things were within an internal culture within an organization. And so I was I now understand these power dynamics a whole heck of a lot better than I did before. I'm really grateful for the experience of working there for 4 years, because I started to understand the toxicity of some internal cultures within organizations. I started to see the doublespeak where folks would say one thing and their actions would implicate something else. And so there was this real dynamic in which it was a bit of just this really amazing immersive learning experience that I went through that was also just very traumatizing in a lot of ways. But it helped me to formulate and understand the power dynamics that exist within organizations, which forms a lot of the basis for a lot of the work I do today. So I'm grateful for that experience, while also recognizing that it was pretty terrible in a lot of ways. So I think that folks, as I'm going through and kind of sharing some of these stories, they probably resonate in some ways to some of you as well, too, that you've probably had an experience of othering where you were I'm kind of part of this group, but I do not really actually feel part of this group. That is one aspect of belonging, or you just don't quite feel a part of that, or you can feel like a more intensive kind of division, where there is like legit like segregation that is really in place to really kind of codify that kind of othering aspect of things. And I think we all know that feeling of belonging as well too. Like there are times where you meet people and you just feel understood, included, and part of a group. And sometimes it does take a little while before you can kind of feel that sense of belonging, because you might enter into a space and not totally trust it. You just might not be quite ready to like step into that space and like let your guard down in a way that is required of us in order to really be able to cultivate that sense of belonging. And that can be for a whole slew of different reasons. But once you find that belonging and feel that sense of belonging, it is really, really important, and it is validating in so many different ways.
We hope you enjoyed this preview. To hear the full episode, head to riseandrouse.substack.com to become a paying subscriber.